Welcome back to the Head, Heart, and Boots podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Brandon. Join us as we wrestle with what it takes to transform ourselves and the businesses we lead.
Oh, what'd you think?
I don't know, it's kind of serious.
Should we laugh? That's terrible, dude. It's like you just crawled into the people's ear and gave this weird...
Dude, and I totally have
deep
like that
breathing sound into the mic.
And I totally have that gnarly, I'm hungry coffee breath.
Well, I'm really glad I didn't.
So if somebody had
that.
smell-o-vision,
oh my gosh,
oh,
dude.
you'd be smelling the guts
right
now.
So I got a story, and let's see where it goes.
Yeah,
I want to stop talking about your coffee breath.
But do you want to live
can
out
you just
the
face forward
experience?
towards the camera, dude?
That's the question. All right.
Does anybody notice our new surety mics, by the way?
Unfortunately, the branding's upside down.
Yeah, I need to flip it around. So anyway,
we're still working with the visual awkwardness of trying to keep the mic stands out of our face, and
a future enhancement. We'll dial that in.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Watley and the team.
You guys are studs.
Yeah, these are Shure MV7s. These are like nice podcasting mics. So
yeah, we're stoked.
We got a little come up for the studio. It's great.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so I'm at a barbecue 3 days ago. Sunday, I'm at a barbecue, and I end up seeing a local executive from a pretty major construction company. There's a few in our market, and so I'm talking with this guy, and I think sometimes we look at big companies, and we kind of get goo goo gaga eyes, thinking, oh my gosh, they're so huge and so successful and they must have it all together. And how did they get there? I mean, especially when you're a small service company or whatever, you got this big vision for yourself, but getting from here to there just seems so ominous. Right. And so we prop up these executives as, wow, there's special sauce there and oftentimes there is, but as I'm talking shop with this guy, he's just
careful on your details.
Yeah. He was talking about how much of a struggle it is to just keep everybody pointed in the same direction, right? The organization of the business is really hard. And I'm like, this is so cool, to learn this about them, that they're real, just like every other company that we work with and experience you and I've had. But, one of the key things he was talking about and key struggle they have is just over the years, as they've grown, they've just promoted people up, into different positions of superintendents, estimators, project, executives and project managers and all that kind of stuff. And that he's discovering that many of them were never equipped with the skill and experience to do that job, right? They came up as an engineer, or they came up as a tradesperson, or some other role, but they were never equipped with the project management or people leadership skills or the financial management, budget management and stuff for the positions. And so they've discovered some pockets of this in the business that it's really been creating some problems in terms of profitability and process and all that. And I thought, wow, I mean, if it can happen in a really successful, respected company like that, how much more does it happen for those of us that, we don't have access to the same resources and even consulting and that kind of stuff that a larger company like that might have. But it really boiled down to, he's like, look, it's about managing that transition between specialist or frontline person or the trade craft, and then leadership and department management and this other role that integrates the technical with the people management.
Yeah, you bet.
And I just thought, wow, that's so relevant for our little niche of the industry as well, right? How often do we take the most charismatic or technically competent person on the team and raise them up into that department leader role, only to see them struggle in one of two ways: just either flounder executing on their role, or becoming sort of the do it person on their team, where where it's just like they end up picking up all of the work from their team because it's just easier to do it themselves. That
Yeah.
whole paradigm,
Yeah.
right?
No, I think you're spot on.
I
Yeah.
thought I thought this is worth talking about because you and I haven't talked about this a ton recently in the podcast, and it's just such a relevant
Yeah.
thing for all of our clients and probably the whole industry,
Yeah. No,
right?
I think you're spot on. And that's just that transition that we see so commonly, or a failure in transition is, again, like like you alluded to, it's just like we trust this individual, right? Because
Yeah.
with the area of responsibility they've had, in the past or currently, before this move or this transition, um is they do it. They do what we ask. They're consistent. They understand the team culture. They're a great fit,
Yeah, they're
like all these
loyal.
things,
Yeah, all
loyal,
that.
engaged. We just have a lot of trust for when we ask them to accomplish task A, they're going to go out and do it well. And so because of that trust, we're like, oh, okay, great. We have a key influencer in our staff and our chain of command. So let's put them in this new arena, this new area of responsibility. And ultimately what you're talking about there is, in a lot of
Hmm.
ways, is they don't any longer know what a win looks like,
Yeah.
because what they were skilled at and what they spent years doing and executing on, they had over time, whether it had been trained or it just was developed over time, is they learned how to produce a win.
Hmm.
And so now they're in this new arena, they're playing a new part of the game, and they no longer know what that win looks like. And so they're doing the best they can to interpret. They're doing the best that they can to maybe pick up things secondhand
Yeah.
in production meetings and meetings. And they're doing the best they can, but they really haven't been equipped or trained formally for this new area of expertise or this new area of responsibility. And I think too, like you said, um, that jumping in and doing is because it's native.
Yeah.
Like that's what they know to do,
You
right?
you know what else I think is going on, and I was chatting with this guy about that, is just this idea that as companies, you can go a long way on charisma and
Mhm.
hustle and values,
Yeah.
right? So many service companies are built on this foundation of the original founder was really a good person, that like they were a person of their word, right? They could be counted on. There
Mhm.
was a value around quality and customer service and a lot of these fundamental things. And you can take that a long way.
Yeah.
Now, how profitable you are along the way as you're figuring it out, right? Of course,
Yeah.
is can be a struggle. But then companies get to a place where you get big enough where those core fundamentals are not enough.
Yeah.
Where like unless some unified language, some consistent processes are adopted across the
Mhm.
team, people understand the why, there's some interconnectedness between the different roles and departments, things really start to break down, and it's no longer enough to have these shared values or everybody is a hard worker and we're all honest. uh because I think you can go a long time with people using their best judgment in the field,
Mhm.
but at some point it's like everybody's best judgment is going to look a little bit
Yeah.
different or a lot different,
Yeah.
and all of that variability of how one person tackles a problem versus another just really starts to catch up with you
Oh yeah,
you
hands
know
down. And then when the file volume and relational volume starts to increase exponentially over the years, then just from a pure statistic perspective, the failure rate, right? The opportunity for a
Oh,
mishap
just keeps going up and up
just
and up.
goes through the roof. I think something that we could do kind of tactically here is you and I have let's call it a perspective on what we think key leaders need to begin focusing on as they make this transition from executing to leadership. And I think what's interesting here is that you can look at this, and I think we'll kind of play with some of the context with this is true all the way from a project manager level to a true department head. Okay. Now, the day to day activity or the part that you're influencing and how you influence this is going to look different.
Hmm.
But honestly, it's like once we leave that position where I am doing physically with my hands,
Yeah.
and now I'm either leading teams, leading subs, guiding the client relationship, these leadership focuses
Hmm.
become the same.
Yeah.
And then they just scale a little bit by role. Okay, so let's just go through those. And I think you and I can ping pong. Okay, what's that look like, let's say, for a project manager as an example versus a department head, or a sales manager versus other kind of operational department head. And I think that'll kind of give some guidance for folks to think about in terms of ultimately we have to identify where the holes are. Okay,
Mm,
we've promoted this individual to this new area of responsibility. If we think about it in this way,
mhm.
now we can go back and say, is there potential for holes? And if so, what can we do to equip them, train them, and,
Yeah.
and fill those gaps? So, okay. So the first part that we really have a shift, I think, mentally is from the doing. When we get into these leadership roles, is we have to really be geared in on the cash effect of what we're doing, what our team's doing, right?
Mm,
And so, for department heads, that's literally like us collecting on invoices that are aging, right? Things of that nature, cost controls, monitoring the execution of those cost controls, things of that nature. But even in the field as a project manager, part of our responsibility for really adhering to a budget and committing to not spending money we don't have approvals on, things of that nature, is about this area of we are protecting the cash flow of the company, this lifeblood that feeds the families, that gives us the ability to advance our skill set and create new opportunities, all that. So that cash collection, when you're no longer a technician, that cash collection piece or focus becomes mission critical.
mm,
So if the idea with this show a little bit is, okay, let's think about where there could be a hole there then.
mm,
So if we understand now a department head or a project manager or some kind of, let's say, complex MIT manager, something along those lines, if they need to have a firmer grip on our cash collection position and what activities they are interacting with on a day-to-day basis that affect that, well, then we need to get some training done around that to make sure that they're competent,
mm.
in that specific area. So very common, right? And actually, in your story, you didn't really unpack it, but the inability or the lack of systems, process, and maybe some training
Mm.
created not a great opportunity for cash flow,
Yeah.
right? And that's ultimately where we see this shake out often.
Yeah.
Profitability, things of those nature. Okay. So the second piece, and these are somewhat interconnected to a certain extent, they just have different functions as we execute on the day, is just this profitability, excuse me, profitability and the consistency of our service delivery,
Mm,
right? So again, when I'm a technician, I'm developing my trade craft, my skill set to come in, follow this process, adhere to it, provide a great customer experience. Now, when I'm a project manager or a department head, it's my overseeing of that. It's
mm.
not me doing it necessarily, but it's this, is my team equipped
Yeah.
to do that? And that's this mental shift where, as you alluded to, we see people just jump in and do it themselves because it's faster. They don't have, by the time they explain it, they can just do it.
Yeah.
But if we don't make that shift, then you've ultimately created an entire department or team that's dependent on one person's trade skill or
Yeah.
skill craft. Instead of that individual making this transition into a leadership role where now it's like, okay, but is my team equipped
Yeah.
to deliver this? Or what do I need to do to make sure I have 5 people that can do it instead of just me? Right.
Yeah.
And that's a hard mental
Yeah, it's like
transition.
being a competition angler, a fisherman, and knowing how to catch fish, and then transitioning to teach others how to fish.
That's
Right?
right.
It's that whole
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah. It's massive. Creating new opportunities. Again, we just, these are these lists of things that we feel, our perspective, that these are mission critical for leaders as they begin to develop in your organization. And again, depending on their role, project management, sales management, department management, the execution might look differently. But this creating new opportunities, right? Like when you begin to really, this is a team sport. This is everybody in our organization needs to have this focus. But again, when we start moving into these leadership roles, it's more than the accountability, the guidance, the equipping of our
Mm.
team to have this shared mentality, to be able to know how their role feeds
Yeah.
this particular item in it.
Yeah. I've heard people describe that as a broader, like integrated view of
Yeah.
their role. Like, where do I fit? Where do my team fit within our business and in relation to these other jobs and other projects we have going on, the relationships we're trying to build and grow. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think kind of the overarching theme here is that it's take your eyes up
Yeah.
a couple stories,
Yeah.
right? We're not at 30,000 feet per
No.
se, but we have to step outside of the execution phase, the hands-on delivering and saying, okay, assess the team, assess my group, my division, and say, how are we accomplishing this? What are we doing to increase the number of opportunities our team will see this year?
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about with this creating new opportunities. It's funny because as we go through this list of like primary focus for leaders is it reminds me a lot of the 4 P's conversation that we've
Oh
had in
yeah.
the past because they're so symbiotic. Like you almost say these things and you say, yeah, but in order to do that, we've got to have this in place or we need to be
Yeah.
focused on this. And that is true. Like there's no way to like protect profitability and consistency of service delivery and not end up creating new opportunities or create a great customer satisfaction experience, right? Like they can't be done in isolation.
Yeah.
Yet they're kind of
These things
core
all fit
attributes.
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Employee engagement. And this one's massive. And I think also this can look like, again, if we're trying to like delineate between a department head, for an example, and like a project manager in the field, our team. It could be as simple as the team,
Mm.
and that team may be made up of employees, but it could be made up of subs and vendors and
Yeah.
partners, right?
Yeah.
But our engagement element is the same.
Yeah.
So maybe instead of employee engagement, it's team engagement, whatever those resources look like, internal or external. As you make this shift from I execute with my hands and now I'm leading some form of this process is how are those teams thinking
Hmm.
about how they affect the job, the client,
Yeah.
our team, our brand? And
How
it's
are we
a
working
significant shift.
together? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. How is this team functioning? Right. Thinking about what in terms of skill sets and personalities and experience levels, like how is this team working together? What does each individual player need in order for us to work more,
Yeah,
you know,
no, that's spot on.
seamlessly together?
Yeah. Training,
Mm.
equipping,
Mhm.
right? If you're and this is true again, every level. I mean, even at our tech level, this is critical. If you're somebody that's been on the team for a while, and we
Mm.
talk about this, I think a couple episodes ago,
Might have, yeah.
or maybe it's coming out this week, coaching culture.
Mm.
This is where that sets in is that as peers and leaders, we need to be looking at our team and asking ourselves the question, is there training that's needed? Is there a conversation that should happen here in order to create that consistency in our customer experience or our service delivery? Um, because again, even with our subs,
Mm.
right? Like sometimes educating our partners and our subs on, hey, when we approach the client, we do it this way,
Yeah.
right? We take this posture. Here's why. Here's how it's brought value to our clients and our team.
Mm.
And really encouraging that equipping and training in your role. So again, when I'm no longer the technician, where
Mm.
I'm just influencing maybe my peer or a battle buddy that's on that particular project. Now I'm a project manager. I'm affecting multiple parties
Yeah.
with my level of leadership. And so understanding like, is there some holes? Do I need to communicate through something, train through something, provide some support
Yeah.
to ensure that we do what we said that we would do in the field? Major transition.
Yeah, I think another thing too, if I add something to our list there, it kind of falls in that training area is developing this whole sense and approach for to accountability.
Yeah.
I think sometimes as we come up through the ranks and when we're an individual producer, we're part of a team and then we ultimately find ourselves in a management role of some kind or leadership role is that accountability piece can be a tough transition for people sometimes because
Man,
they're used
huge.
to really just engaging with peers um and if they haven't had a reason to hold others accountable in that role, that can be a hard transition. It makes me think of um, that phrase from Henry Cloud that leaders always get what they create and what they allow,
Yeah.
and it feels like an important that's a skill,
Yeah.
right? To establish standards on the team,
Yep.
to communicate those standards really, really clearly, and then to hold people to it. And I think especially in our industry because it's just so fast at times and chaotic is that standard keeping
Yeah.
can be one of the first things to fly out the window where we make small concessions,
Yep.
right? Small steps in the process are missed or skipped or just disregarded. And we make that judgment on the fly, like, is it worth my time to circle back on this or have an after action review? And it's like, I got too many things on my plate. I'm going to let this one fly. And
Yeah.
we let the second one fly. And ultimately, then what happens is now all of a sudden, none of the PMs are doing, pre-construction budgets.
Yep. Winging it.
They're all just winging it as they go, and we're in a world of hurt from our profitability. And it's just because one guy to say, hey, it's a small job,
Yep.
I already kind of know how it's lined out, I don't need to do the budget on this one, and we let it fly because it was a small job. And now all of a sudden on a bigger job, we're skipping that same budgeting process again, or we're cutting corners on it, and it just spins out from there. And then all of a sudden we're like, man, why is our profit numbers not where we need it, and why is our turnover all of a sudden gone up, and all the
It's
things.
the whole, it's the path of least resistance
Yeah.
science. At the end of the day, all of us as humans, regardless of how badass you are and how disciplined,
Yeah.
if there is a natural tendency to take the path of least resistance.
So true.
And as leaders, when we don't create accountability, we create a path that's less resistant, and eventually our team will take it. It
Yeah.
just is what it is. It's not malicious intent.
No.
It's not them being bad people or being C players. It's a reality of kind of human behavior.
Yeah.
It's really interesting you bring up that point. I think there's some additional value there in terms of just that. So that idea of accountability is how important it is for like a business owner or a GM for these roles, that when we take someone that we've trusted with a little responsibility, we've asked them to step into this new plane of responsibility. What we're ultimately trying to do as an organization is cut down the number of people we're attempting to hold accountable at any given time,
Mm.
right? The military is very diligent about creating a very clear organizational chart. A chain of command is what they refer to it. And kind of their theory is that one human shouldn't be directly responsible for any more. I want to say it's something as little as 10 people. So if you think about like team dynamics, company dynamics, the way that it's set up, right? A team will have a team lead. Okay. We're
Mhm.
talking 4 to 5 personnel. A platoon will have a platoon lead role, platoon sergeant, um, a squad will have a squad leader. Like you see this where they're developing a key influencer, a leader at each phase. And most of the time you have a leader identified for every 4 to 5 troops.
Mm.
Okay. And the reason they're so intentional about that is that in order for us to train, equip, hold accountable, communicate to, and really move pieces effectively in the battlefield,
Mm.
we cannot be trying to give marching orders to 100 people at a time.
Right.
It's not physically possible. You can't do it.
Yeah.
And so, companies, we need to remember when we're developing a key leader to take over a project, a department, the idea is that each leader in the company then has a smaller audience that they're feeding into directly, that they're
Mm.
equipping, that they're doing these primary focuses with.
Yeah.
And that's really important. I think some of the things that we do is we fail to remind our staff or teach them that, like, why are you in this role? Is it because we just have a title team lead and we need to fill that with a name? Or do they understand that, hey, here's our org chart, here's how we lead people and ensure that each one of us doesn't have too many
Mm.
people that we're directly responsible for. And this is important for you. Just like I lead you, it's your job to mirror that behavior and hold your team
Yeah.
accountable, right? That's how we create
It's really good.
a win. Now, the last little kind of piece on this is this succession planning. And again, they're so symbiotic. Like it's almost like you could wrap all the above up
Mm.
into succession planning. But here's the mental shift, and I don't see very many people doing this. We have to equip our new leaders to be thinking about, okay, who else in the ranks are showing signs of consistency, dependability, engagement, commitment,
Mm.
so that we can create a pipeline of influencers and leaders amongst our ranks,
Yeah.
right? So a GM needs to be looking for the next department head, the next whatever, right? And then these teams need to
Yeah.
be doing the same thing. We need to be walking a technician from day one as a tech one up to a senior complex loss MIT manager, whatever,
Yeah.
but we need to be identifying this in people and then spending energy. And that goes back to this limiting factor on how many people can you directly be responsible for? Well, if you're sending an email out,
Yeah.
hundreds. But if your job is to coach and equip,
Support.
develop, identify,
Yeah.
right? You can't do that with very many people at one given time.
No, it's so true. And I think also what you're hitting on too is just that creating a pathway for our people when we see those people starting to lay out for them, like helping them gain a vision of, okay, if I want to get here, and it sounds like there's potential, they see potential in me. What are some of the things I need to put in place? Makes me think of Yellowstone, actually.
Oh yeah.
So I'm in the fourth season of Yellowstone, and spoiler alert, um, Jimmy
Yes.
becomes a cowboy
Yes.
eventually.
Eventually, believe
But
it or not.
oh man, I mean, he is just a bag of potatoes for a while though. Like the guys just don't know what to do with him. He's earnest. He wants to be something different, something better, but he's just struggling to be a cowboy. But Lloyd takes him under his wing.
Yeah, he does.
Lloyd sees potential in this kid. It's almost as though he sees himself in that kid somehow. I mean, he
Yeah.
becomes almost he takes on almost more of a father figure
Yeah.
of supporting him and encouraging him. But, occasionally in this show, he pulls him aside and he's like, listen, boy, or
Yeah.
whatever he
Yeah.
says, listen, if you're going to do X, like you better get serious about Y,
Yeah.
and there's those little moments of truth where he
Yeah.
pulls him aside and he guides him. He said, okay, if you want this, you better get your stuff together and start doing that.
That's right.
And Rip, one of the other figures, one of their leadership figures in the show, does similar things with Jimmy. And it's so fun in the fourth season when Jimmy comes back as a real cowboy,
Yeah.
and the pride that you see from Rip and Lloyd is huge. And you also see this transformed human
Oh, big
at the
time.
end. And
Yeah.
it's like, it was such a reminder for me because you and I've had that moment with some people
Yeah.
where it's like, wow, when that comes full circle, it's so special, but it was so intentional.
Yep.
It felt intentional. Even on the show, they were investing in that, and they were
That's right.
calling out what they were seeing
Yeah.
and pointing to the stuff that they needed to do in order to continue on that path.
Dude, that actually that story is so applicable. And that really is the switch here. So if we summarize like kind of an explanation of a new leader or somebody that's transitioning into a department head or a project management role from some other position is we need to create a vision for what being a true asset to the organization looks
Yeah,
like
what does a
now.
winner look like?
Like now, right?
Yeah.
Because it is different. The deliverables are different. And we really are looking for leaders, up and coming influencers that will create force multipliers within our organization.
Mm,
That's really what we're searching for
yeah.
when we assign people these leadership roles. And your example is exactly what that is. That is a force multiplier. So either one of those two leaders could just do it themselves,
Yeah.
but our team hasn't gotten any larger or more capable. The real value they bring is they take somebody who's ill-equipped and they equip them.
Yeah.
And now we have a new team member that's just as capable as they were,
We just
right?
increased the capacity of our company
We've increased our capacity,
forever.
our reach, our influence,
Yeah.
all the things. And that's exactly what that succession planning is like, if we're a $3 million company today and tomorrow we want to be a $5 million company, just hiring cold bodies off the street is not how we get there.
Yeah.
We need influencers and people that will help live out that strategy and that
Yeah.
consistent service delivery. And the way that we get that is by equipping the people that are on the team now and identifying those new prospects, those new leaders in the
Mm,
ranks, and giving them the guidance that they need to make that transition.
yeah.
Total overview, right? Like
Yeah, but this
lots
is
of
good.
nuts
I
and
think
bolts in
I
there,
think for
but
a lot of people, this is a reminder, and some of you that maybe are finding yourself in the midst of growing pains,
yeah,
which is kind of what this guy described to me, even though it's a very established company. You just reach these points, these moments of truth where you realize that there's something broken about your business. You dig into it, and often, I think that's why I remembered this story. It was so kind of prescient from this barbecue. I was like, yeah, this is the thing
yeah,
that companies struggle with over and over again. We have these moments in our growth trajectory that, like, oh man, we got a problem here.
yeah,
And if we handle it right, we get real with ourselves, it becomes another basis for growth,
yep,
But that issue of promoting people without properly equipping them
yeah.
is just it's universal. I mean, we all of us have struggled with it, and all of us will struggle with it again.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's a solid
Yeah.
reminder. Definitely something we're all facing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So, hey, reminder, right? If you're enjoying this podcast, right, you get value out of the stuff that Brandon and I share, please share it. I mean, that's the best way that you can help us.
Yeah.
We've been watching our average engaged listeners just grow and grow and grow, and we're so grateful. So
Yeah.
thank you. We know a lot of you text message your friends with the link and stuff like that.
Oh, leave a review too.
Oh my gosh, leave a review.
Please,
God, reviews
guys.
are just the currency of today, right?
Yeah.
And then you can also leave us a Google review if you go Floodlight Consulting Group. Anyways,
Yeah, please.
The makers of the Head, Heart, and Boots podcast.
That's right.
And then the last thing too is please engage with us. Find us on LinkedIn. Send us a message if there's a topic or a guest that you'd like to see us have.
Absolutely.
We have a great pipeline of coming. In fact, we got some really rad shows that are coming out, but we're always looking for new interesting stuff. So please connect with us.
Yeah, we want to make sure the content's relevant.
Yeah.
And really the best way to do that is to hear from you.
Yeah.
So keep it conversational, keep it two-way.
Yep.
All right, gang.
Right on. See you next time.
All right, everybody. Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of Head, Heart, and Boots.
And if you're enjoying the show, but you love this episode, please hit subscribe, write us a review, or share this episode with a friend. Share it on LinkedIn, share it via text, whatever. It all helps. Thanks for listening.